My 10-year-old daughter, Bridget, stood at our front window for 3 hours in her pink tulle dress, watching for headlights that never came. Her small hands pressed against the glass left foggy fingerprints that I still hadn't wiped away a week later. When my ex-husband Warren finally texted at 7:47 p.m. with, "Taking Stephanie's daughter instead, she's more fun," I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw my phone against the wall like I wanted to. I made one phone call to my brother-in-law, Jerome, the family court judge who'd been watching Warren's antics from the sidelines for 2 years. 5 days later, Warren's lawyer called him during a business meeting, and according to his secretary, he went so pale she thought he was having a heart attack. But let me back up, because you need to understand who we all are in this mess. I'm Francine, 38 years old, and I clean teeth for a living as a dental hygienist at Riverside Dental. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps Bridget and me in our little 2-bedroom apartment on Maple Street. I've got brown hair that's usually in a ponytail, tired eyes that my concealer can't quite hide anymore, and hands that smell perpetually like mint and latex gloves. I'm nobody special, just a mom trying to make sure my daughter grows up knowing she's loved. Bridget is my whole world. She's got her father's green eyes, but thankfully my temperament. She makes friendship bracelets for kids who sit alone at lunch, saves her allowance to buy cat food for the stray behind our building, and still believes that people are basically good. Even after everything Warren has put her through, she still lights up when his name appears on my phone. She's in 4th grade at Willowbrook Elementary, where she gets straight A's and never misses a day, even when she's sick, because she loves her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, that much. Warren is 42, sells commercial real estate, and drives a BMW he can't afford. He's got that kind of charm that works on clients and waitresses, but wears thin when you're married to it. Salt and pepper hair he pays too much to style, a smile that doesn't reach his eyes, and a talent for making you feel like everything's your fault. We were married for 8 years before I finally filed for divorce. He fought me on everything from custody to who got the coffee maker, then turned around and married Stephanie 6 months after our papers were signed. And then there's Jerome, my saving grace in this story. He's married to my sister Gloria, been a family court judge for 12 years, and has seen every dirty trick in the book. Jerome's the kind of man who wears suspenders unironically, keeps candy in his desk drawer for nervous kids who have to testify, and remembers every birthday in our extended family. He's 6'4", built like a linebacker, but speaks so softly that courtrooms go silent just to hear him. He's never met a bully he couldn't handle with words alone. The thing about that February night that I'll never forget wasn't just Bridget's tears or Warren's cruelty. It was the sound of hope dying. You know that sound? It's not dramatic like in the movies. It's quiet. It's a 10-year-old girl slowly taking off her special occasion shoes and setting them carefully by the door because she's been taught to take care of nice things. It's the rustle of tulle against the hallway wall as she walks to her room without saying goodnight. It's the gentle click of a bedroom door closing when you expected it to slam. I stood in that hallway for 20 minutes after Bridget went to bed, still in her dress, still believing maybe her daddy would show up with some grand explanation. My phone sat heavy in my hand with Warren's text glowing on the screen. "She's more fun." 3 words that said everything about what kind of father he really was. Not "I'm sorry," not "something came up," not even a lie about car trouble or work emergency. Just the truth, brutal and careless, that another child was worth more to him than his own daughter. The pink dress had cost me 2 weeks of overtime, not because it was designer or anything fancy, but because when Bridget saw it at Macy's, her face transformed into pure joy. It had layers and layers of tulle that made her look like a ballerina, tiny pearl beads sewn into the bodice that caught the light when she spun around, and a satin ribbon that tied into a perfect bow in the back. She'd tried on 15 dresses that day, but when she put on that pink one, she whispered, "This is it, Mom. This is the one Daddy will love." That night changed everything. Not just for Warren, though he certainly got what was coming to him. It changed how Bridget saw the world, how I handled disappointment, and how our little family of 2 became stronger than any family of 4 we'd ever been. But most importantly, it taught me that sometimes the best revenge isn't anger or tears or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's a quiet phone call to the right person who's been waiting for legal proof of what they've suspected all along. 2 years had passed since the divorce papers were signed, and I'd built us a routine that worked. Bridget and I had our Friday pizza nights, Saturday morning cartoons with chocolate chip pancakes, and Sunday trips to the library where she'd check out 7 books and finish them all by Thursday. Our apartment wasn't fancy, but it was ours. The walls were covered with Bridget's artwork, photos from our adventures to the zoo and the beach, and a growth chart on the kitchen doorframe where I marked her height on the first of every month. The custody arrangement was supposed to be simple. Warren got Bridget every other weekend, alternating holidays and 2 weeks in the summer. In reality, he showed up when it was convenient, which meant maybe once a month if we were lucky. He'd canceled Christmas morning because Stephanie wanted to go skiing in Aspen. He'd missed Bridget's birthday party because he had a client golf tournament. Each time I watched my daughter's face fall, then watched her rebuild her smile and say, "That's okay, Mom, Daddy's really busy with work." But this was different. The father-daughter sweetheart dance at Willowbrook Elementary was legendary. They held it every February in the school gymnasium, which the PTA transformed into what they called a garden of love. Pink and red streamers, twinkling lights, a photo booth with silly props, and a real DJ who played everything from Disney songs to clean versions of pop hits. For 4th graders, this was basically the Met Gala. Bridget first mentioned the dance in December. "Mom, Melody says her dad's already practicing his dance moves. Do you think Daddy knows how to dance?" By January, she was leaving sticky notes around the apartment, reminding herself of things to tell Warren about the dance. "Ask Daddy if he likes corsages. Tell Daddy the theme is Enchanted Garden. Remind Daddy it's February 10th at 7 p.m. When she finally called Warren in mid-January, I was folding laundry in the next room. I could hear the hope in her voice, the careful way she presented it like she was afraid he'd say no. "Daddy, there's this special dance at my school, and it's just for dads and daughters. All my friends are going with their dads, and I was wondering if maybe you could take me. It's on a Saturday, so you won't have to miss work or anything." Warren must have said yes immediately because Bridget squealed so loud I dropped the towel I was folding. She ran into the laundry room and threw her arms around me. "He said yes. Daddy's taking me to the dance. He said we'll be the best-dressed pair there." That's when Warren actually surprised me. He Venmo'd me $300 with a message. "For Bridget's dress, make sure she gets something special." It was the first time in months he'd sent money without me having to ask twice. I thought maybe, just maybe, he was finally stepping up. The dress shopping trip was magical. Bridget and I went to 3 different stores, and she was so serious about finding the perfect dress. "It can't be too long because I might trip. It can't be too short because that's not fancy. It needs to twirl when I spin, but not fly up too high." When she found the pink dress at Macy's, she actually gasped. The sales lady, an older woman named Dolores, got tears in her eyes watching Bridget twirl in front of the 3-way mirror. "You look like a princess," Dolores said, and Bridget responded, "I feel like one. My daddy's going to be so proud." The week before the dance, our apartment became dance central. Bridget practiced her curtsy, her formal introduction. "Good evening, I'm Bridget Marie Coleman, and this is my father, Warren James Coleman," and every dance move she'd learned from YouTube tutorials. She made Warren a boutonniere out of silk flowers and ribbons she bought with her own allowance money. She wrote him a card that said, "Thank you for being the best daddy and taking me to my first real dance. Love, your Princess Bridget." On Thursday night, 2 days before the dance, Warren actually called to confirm. "Saturday at 6:30, right, Princess? I'll be there. I've got my suit pressed and everything." Bridget planned out their entire evening on the phone with him. "We'll take pictures by the fountain at school, and then we can get ice cream after at Brewster's if you want, and maybe you can meet my teacher, because she's going to be there as a chaperone." "Sounds perfect, Bridge. Hey, do you still like butterscotch sundaes? You remembered." "Of course I remembered. I'm your dad." That Friday night, Bridget could barely sleep. She had her dress hanging on her bedroom door, her shoes lined up perfectly underneath, and her special occasion purse packed with lip gloss, breath mints, and tissues in case happy tears happen. She made me promise to curl her hair in spirals and to use the sparkly hairspray we'd been saving for special occasions. "Mom," she said as I tucked her in that Friday night, "do you think Daddy will cry when he sees me in my dress?" I smoothed her hair back from her forehead and kissed her goodnight. "I think he's going to be speechless, baby." She smiled and closed her eyes, probably dreaming about dancing with her father under twinkling lights while her friends watched enviously. If I'd known what was coming less than 24 hours later, I would have held her longer, prepared her somehow, protected her from the disappointment that would shatter her trust in ways I was still trying to repair. But that night we still had hope, and sometimes hope is the cruelest thing of all. Saturday morning arrived with bright sunshine that seemed to mock what was coming. Bridget woke up at 6 a.m. too excited to sleep any longer. She made her own breakfast, careful not to spill anything that might stain her dress later. "Mom, I'm eating toast instead of cereal because milk could splash," she announced seriously, as if preparing for a NASA mission. By noon, she'd already showered and was sitting in her bathrobe, painting her nails the lightest shade of pink I'd allow. Her friend Melody called 3 times to coordinate their grand entrance. "We're going to walk in at the same time," Bridget explained to me. "Her dad and my dad know each other from that time they met at the school play, so we're all going to sit together." At 4 p.m., the preparation ritual began in earnest. I set up my makeshift salon in the bathroom with the curling iron, bobby pins, and that special sparkly hairspray she'd been saving. Each curl was meticulously shaped and pinned to cool. Bridget sat perfectly still, unusual for a girl who normally couldn't stop fidgeting. "Melody's mom is French braiding her hair, but I want mine down and fancy like a movie star," she said, watching me work in the mirror. By 5:30, she was fully dressed. The pink tulle dress transformed my little girl into something out of a fairy tale. The pearls on the bodice caught the afternoon light streaming through her bedroom window. Her Mary Jane shoes were polished to a shine. She'd even insisted on wearing the tiny pearl earrings my mother had given her for her first communion. "Grandma would want me to wear something from her tonight," she said, touching them gently. At 6 p.m., Bridget positioned herself at the living room window. She had the perfect view of our building's parking lot and the street beyond. "I'll see Daddy's car the second he turns in," she said, her breath fogging the glass. Her boutonniere for Warren sat in a clear plastic box on the entrance table, right next to her purse and the card she'd made him. 6:15 came and went. "He's probably just getting gas," Bridget reasoned. "Or maybe he's picking up flowers for me. Melody's dad got her roses last year for her birthday." At 6:30, I sent Warren a text. "Bridget's ready and waiting. See you soon." The read receipt appeared immediately, but no response came. 6:35. "The dance starts at 7, Bridget said, though I already knew. "But it's okay if we're a tiny bit late. The important thing is the father-daughter spotlight dance at 8:30. 6:40. I texted again. "Warren, where are you? Bridget's watching for you." 6:45. My phone rang. My heart jumped, but it was Melody's mom, Patricia. "Are you guys here yet?" The girls wanted to take pictures together by the balloon arch. "We're running a few minutes late," I lied smoothly. "Warren got held up, but they'll be there soon." Bridget looked at me with those green eyes, her father's eyes, but filled with a worry that belonged to no child. "Is Daddy okay?" "I'm sure he's fine, sweetheart. You know how bad traffic can be on Saturday nights." 6:50, I called Warren, straight to voicemail, called again, voicemail. 7. The dance had officially started. Bridget hadn't moved from the window. Her shoulders were tense now, the excitement replaced by something harder to watch. "Maybe he got the time wrong," she said quietly. "Maybe he thinks it starts at 7:30. I called Warren's office. No answer. I even swallowed my pride and called Stephanie's cell phone. She didn't pick up. 7:15. Melody called Bridget directly. I could hear her excited voice through the phone. "Bridge, where are you? They're playing all the good songs. My dad and I already took 5 pictures. The cookies are shaped like hearts and they have pink frosting." Bridget's voice was steady, but I heard the crack underneath. "We're coming really soon. Daddy just had to stop for something special." After she hung up, she turned to me. "I lied to her, Mom. That's bad, right?" "Sometimes we say things to protect people's feelings, baby. That's different from a mean lie." 7:30, 45 minutes late. Bridget finally moved from the window to sit on the couch. The tulle of her dress spread around her like a pink cloud. She picked at one of the pearls on the bodice. "Do you think something bad happened to him?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Warren. Finally. My hands shook as I opened it, hoping for an explanation, an apology, something I could spin into hope for my waiting daughter. Can't make it tonight. Stephanie insisted I take Harper instead. You know how 8-year-olds are. More fun at these things. Bridget will understand. Buy her ice cream or something. I read it 3 times. Each time the words became more unbelievable. Harper, Stephanie's daughter from her first marriage. A child who had a perfectly good father of her own. A child who Warren had known for less than a year. He chose her over his own daughter, who'd been waiting in a pink dress she'd practiced twirling in for weeks. "Is that Daddy?" Bridget asked, hope flaring in her voice one last time. I looked at my daughter, sitting there in her perfect dress with her perfectly curled hair and her little pearl earrings, holding a boutonniere for a man who'd just shattered her heart for someone else's child. I had 2 choices: lie and make excuses for him again, or tell her the truth and watch her world collapse. "Baby," I said, sitting down next to her, pulling her close, "Daddy's not coming tonight." Her face crumpled in slow motion, each feature registering the betrayal separately. First confusion, then disbelief, then a pain so profound it took my breath away. "But he promised," she whispered. "He promised, Mom. We were going to dance to Butterfly Fly Away because that's our song. He promised." She didn't wait for an explanation. She stood up, her dress rustling against the coffee table, and walked to her room. No running, no door slamming, just the quiet dignity of a little girl who'd aged years in seconds. I heard her door close softly, and then came the sound that will haunt me forever. My baby girl sobbing into her pillow, still wearing the dress she'd believed would make her daddy proud. I sat on the floor outside Bridget's bedroom door for an hour, listening to her cry. Every sob felt like a knife twisting in my chest, but I didn't go in. Sometimes children need to grieve privately, to feel their feelings without a parent trying to fix what can't be fixed. The hallway was dark except for the nightlight we kept plugged in near the bathroom, casting strange shadows that matched my mood. At 8:47, her crying finally stopped. I knocked gently and opened the door. She was asleep on top of her covers, still in the pink dress, which was now wrinkled and tear-stained. Her face was puffy, her carefully curled hair matted against her cheek. One of her shoes had fallen off, the other dangled from her foot. I carefully removed both shoes, covered her with her grandmother's quilt, and kissed her forehead. She didn't stir. I walked back to the living room and picked up my phone. Warren's message still glowed on the screen. Buy her ice cream or something. As if ice cream could fix a broken promise. As if sugar could, substitute for a father's love. As if anything could make up for choosing another child over your own. But this wasn't just about tonight. This was about 2 years of disappointments that I'd enabled by making excuses. The missed soccer games where Bridget scored her first goal. The forgotten birthday where I had to forge his signature on a card. The Christmas morning when he texted Merry Xmas while posting Instagram photos from Aspen with Stephanie and Harper. Each time, I'd smooth it over, tell Bridget her daddy loved her, that work was just really demanding right now. I thought I was protecting her. I was actually teaching her that she wasn't worth showing up for. I scrolled through my contacts and stopped at Jerome's name. My brother-in-law, the family court judge. Gloria's husband of 15 years. The man who'd pulled me aside at last Thanksgiving and said, "Francine, if Warren keeps pulling this garbage, you need to document it. The court can't act on what it doesn't know." I'd brushed him off then, said everything was fine, that Warren was trying. But Jerome had given me that look, the one judges perfect over years of seeing through lies. "My door's always open, Francine, legal or otherwise." It was now 9:15 p.m., late to call, but not too late. Jerome answered on the second ring. "Francine, everything okay?" "No," I said, and the word came out stronger than I expected. "No, Jerome, nothing's okay, and I need to tell you something." "I'm listening." I told him everything. Not just about tonight, but about the pattern I'd been ignoring. The support checks that came late or not at all while Warren posted pictures of his new boat. The weekends he'd canceled last minute, always with work excuses, then showed up in social media photos at restaurants with Stephanie. The time last summer when he left Bridget alone in his apartment for 3 hours while he went to show a property, telling her not to answer the door for anyone. How old was she when he left her alone? Jerome's voice had changed, taking on that professional tone I'd heard him use in court. 9. She called me crying because she was scared, but made me promise not to tell him she told me. What else, Francine? I pulled up my banking app. He's paid child support in full exactly 3 times in 2 years, always partial payments, always late. But he claimed her as a dependent on his taxes. I know because the IRS rejected my return. You didn't fight that? I couldn't afford a lawyer, and Warren said if I made trouble, he'd go for full custody just to spite me. Said he'd bury me in legal fees until I gave up. There was silence on Jerome's end, but I could hear him writing. And tonight? Tonight he texted me that he was taking his stepdaughter to the father-daughter dance instead of Bridget because, and I quote, "She's more fun." I have the message. Forward it to me. Now. I did, then asked, "Jerome, what can you do? You're not even in our district." "No, but Judge Garrett in your district is an old friend from law school. We golf together. More importantly, I know which forensic accountant the court uses for complicated financial reviews. Warren's been filing financial affidavits with the court claiming poverty while living pretty high. That's perjury, Francine. I don't want him in jail. That won't help Bridget. No, but owing 2 years of proper child support based on his real income might wake him up. And Francine, there's something else. Judges take patterns of emotional neglect seriously now. What he did tonight, choosing another child over his own and putting it in writing, that's documented emotional abuse. That text is evidence. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from relief. Someone was finally taking this seriously. What should I do? Document everything from now on. Every missed visit, every late payment, every broken promise. Take screenshots of his social media, especially anything showing expensive purchases or trips. Save every text. Meanwhile, I'm going to make some calls Monday morning. Completely above board, all through proper channels. Warren's about to learn that the family court system doesn't look kindly on fathers who treat their children as optional. Jerome, I don't want you to risk your career for us. He actually laughed. Francine, I'm not risking anything. I'm reporting legitimate concerns about a child's welfare to the appropriate authorities. That's not just allowed, it's encouraged. The fact that Warren's been lying to the court about his finances, that's just a bonus they'll discover on their own once they start looking. After I hung up, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 2 years. Power. Not the ugly kind that Warren wielded with his threats and money, but the clean, sharp power of finally standing up for my daughter. I wasn't going to cry over his cruelty or beg him to be a better father. I was going to use the system he'd threatened me with to ensure he faced consequences for the first time in his privileged life. I looked in on Bridget one more time. She'd turned in her sleep, and the moonlight through her window illuminated her face. Even in sleep, there was a sadness there that shouldn't exist in a 10-year-old. I made a promise to her sleeping form. This is the last time he breaks your heart without consequences, baby. Mommy's done playing nice. Sunday morning, I started my documentation folder. By the time Bridget woke up, I had 2 years of bank statements printed, 50 screenshots from Warren's Instagram, and a timeline of every missed visit typed up. The war for my daughter's emotional well-being had officially begun, and I was finally armed for battle. Monday morning came with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. I dropped Bridget at school, watching her walk through the entrance with her shoulders hunched, trying to be invisible. The other girls were still chattering about the dance, comparing photos on their phones, but my daughter kept her eyes on her shoes. Melody tried to comfort her. Bless that sweet child, but Bridget just shrugged and said her dad got sick. Another lie to protect Warren, even after what he'd done. At work, I cleaned teeth with mechanical precision while my mind raced through everything Jerome had set in motion. He texted me at 7 a.m. "Wheels are turning. Garrett is very interested. Keep your phone close." By lunch, I had 3 missed calls from an unknown number. The voicemail was from a forensic accountant named Deborah Winters. "Mrs. Coleman, Judge Garrett has asked me to review some financial documents regarding your ex-husband. Please call me at your earliest convenience." Tuesday was when things got interesting. Warren was apparently living a double life that would make a soap opera writer jealous. While claiming to the court that he made $40,000 a year, he'd actually closed 3 commercial property deals in the last 6 months alone, each netting him commissions over $30,000. His Instagram, which he'd forgotten I could still see through a mutual friend's account, showed a new Rolex, weekend trips to Miami, and a country club membership that cost more than my annual rent. But the real revelation came Wednesday morning. Deborah Winters called me directly. Mrs. Coleman, in reviewing your ex-husband's financial declarations versus his actual tax filings, we've discovered some significant discrepancies. He's been using a shell company to hide income. It's registered in Delaware under the name WC Premium Properties, LLC. Is that illegal? Hiding assets from family court? Absolutely. Lying on financial affidavits? That's perjury. The IRS is going to be very interested in Mr. Coleman's creative accounting. Wednesday afternoon, while Warren was at his weekly sales meeting at the Marriott downtown, his carefully constructed house of cards began to fall. First, an IRS agent named Timothy Chen called his office requesting 5 years of financial records for an audit. His secretary, Louise, later told me Warren went white when she forwarded the message. Then family court sent a notice of emergency hearing for Friday regarding substantial misrepresentation of financial resources and child support recalculation. But the universe wasn't done with Warren yet. His lawyer, Richard Decker, had received the court documents and done his own investigation. What he found made him demand an immediate meeting with his client. Thursday morning, Warren strutted into Decker's office, still trying to play the victim. According to Decker's paralegal, who happened to be my cousin's best friend, the conversation was explosive. "Warren, you told me you were broke during the divorce," Decker said, sliding papers across his mahogany desk. "You said you could barely afford the minimum child support. So, everyone hides money during divorce. Not everyone commits tax fraud to do it. You claimed Bridget as a dependent, while paying almost no support. You filed false financial affidavits with the court. You have 3 investment properties you never disclosed. Do you understand what you've done?" Warren apparently laughed. "Come on, Dick. You're my lawyer. Fix this." "I can't fix felony perjury, Warren. Based on these real numbers, you owe approximately $47,000 in back child support, plus interest. The IRS wants $31,000 in corrected taxes and penalties, and this is just what they've found so far." That's when Warren finally understood the magnitude of his situation. Louise said he stumbled out of the building looking like he'd been punched. He tried calling me 17 times that afternoon. I didn't answer once. Thursday evening brought the crescendo. Stephanie called me, her voice shaking. "Francine, I need to ask you something. Has Warren been hiding money from the court?" I chose my words carefully. "The court is investigating his finances." "Why?" "Because I just found bank statements for accounts I didn't know existed. 3 investment properties, 2 in his name alone, 1 in that shell company. We've been living in a rental, putting off having a baby because he said he couldn't afford it. He told me you were bleeding him dry, that the child support was killing us financially." "Stephanie, he's paid full child support exactly 3 times in 2 years." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, "That bastard, he made me feel guilty for wanting to buy Harper new school clothes. He said Bridget was getting everything while Harper had to make do. God, Francine, I'm so sorry. The dance, everything. I didn't know. Harper's been asking why Mr. Warren took her instead of Bridget. She said Bridget was crying at school on Monday." "Your daughter has more emotional intelligence than her stepfather." "Not for long. I'm calling my lawyer in the morning. And Francine, I have records too. Receipts, bank statements, even recordings of him bragging about his deals. I'll testify if you need me to." Friday's emergency hearing was scheduled for 2 p.m. Warren showed up in his best suit, still trying to maintain his successful businessman facade. I wore my scrubs, having come straight from work. The difference was intentional. Jerome had advised me, let the judge see who's actually working for a living. Judge Garrett, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and no patience for lies, reviewed the evidence for exactly 15 minutes before speaking. Mr. Coleman, in 23 years on this bench, I've rarely seen such blatant contempt for this court's authority. You've committed perjury, tax fraud, and willful non-payment of child support while living a luxury lifestyle. Your arrears are calculated at $47,318 to be paid immediately or face contempt charges. Your support going forward is reset to $3,000 per month based on your actual income. Any failure to pay will result in immediate arrest. Warren's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. But Judge Garrett wasn't finished. Furthermore, I'm forwarding this case to the district attorney for potential criminal prosecution for perjury. And Mr. Coleman, I have the text message you sent regarding the father-daughter dance. Choosing another child over your own, then putting that cruelty in writing? That speaks to your character more than any financial document could. I'm ordering supervised visitation only, pending a full psychological evaluation. The gavel came down with a finality that echoed through the courtroom. Warren Coleman, the man who'd treated fatherhood as an optional hobby, finally faced consequences he couldn't charm his way out of. The immediate fallout from that Friday hearing was swift and merciless. Warren's house of cards didn't just fall, it exploded. Within a week, the IRS had frozen 2 of his accounts pending their investigation. His biggest client, Robert Hutchinson, a man with 4 daughters of his own, pulled a $3 million property deal after hearing about the father-daughter dance incident from his wife, who happened to be on the Willowbrook Elementary PTA board with me. Word travels fast in our town, especially when it involves a man who chose his stepdaughter over his biological child. Stephanie filed for divorce the following Monday. She called me that evening, crying and apologizing. I packed Harper's things and we're staying with my mother. Harper keeps asking if Bridget is okay. She made her a card that says, "I'm sorry your daddy was mean." A 7-year-old understands what Warren doesn't. The country club wives who used to invite Warren to every charity gala and networking event suddenly found their guest lists full. Margaret Whitley, the queen bee of social society, made it clear at the next PTA meeting. A man who abandons his daughter for someone else's child isn't welcome at family events. Warren went from golden boy to pariah in less than 2 weeks. But the real justice came in smaller, more personal moments. Warren started sending expensive gifts to the apartment, trying to buy his way back into Bridget's good graces. An iPad, a designer backpack, tickets to Disney World, even a $1,000 shopping spree offer. Each time, Bridget would look at the gift, then at me, then make her decision. "Send it back, Mom," she said every time. "I don't want things. I wanted him." 3 months after the dance, Warren showed up at our apartment unannounced on a Saturday morning, his supervised visitation request still pending. He stood in our doorway with tears in his eyes, whether real or calculated. I couldn't tell. "Please, Francine, let me talk to her. I need to explain." "Explain what, Warren? How a stranger's child was more fun than your own daughter?" "I made a mistake. Stephanie was pressuring me and I wasn't thinking clearly." Bridget appeared behind me in her pajamas, holding the book she'd been reading. She looked at her father with eyes that had aged years in months. "You didn't make a mistake, Daddy. You made a choice. Mistakes are accidents. You chose Harper." Warren tried to reach for her, but she stepped back. "Bridge, Princess, please. I'm your father." "No," she said with a composure that stunned us both. "A father shows up. A father keeps promises. A father doesn't trade his daughter for someone more fun. You're just the man who sends checks now. And you know what? That's better than the man who sent lies." She turned and walked back to her room, not slammed the door, just closed it quietly. That dignity in a 10-year-old devastated Warren more than any court judgment could. He stood there in our doorway, this man who'd once charmed everyone he met, now unable to charm the one person whose love should have been unconditional. When did she become so cold? She's not cold, Warren. She's protected. There's a difference. 6 months later, Warren had paid his back support in full, mostly because the alternative was jail time. His real estate business took a significant hit when word spread about his character. Turns out, people don't trust a realtor who lies to judges. Stephanie's divorce took half of what was left. The IRS took their share. The man who once bragged about his BMW and Rolex was driving a 10-year-old Honda and living in a one-bedroom apartment on the wrong side of town. But here's what Warren never understood, and what Bridget learned too young. Actions echo. That one text message, those 3 words, "she's more fun," created ripples that destroyed everything he'd built on lies and ego. He lost his wife, his reputation, his wealth, and most importantly, the respect of a little girl who once thought he hung the moon. A year after the dance, Willowbrook Elementary held another father-daughter sweetheart dance. This time, Bridget didn't even mention it. But Jerome, my brother-in-law, the judge who'd started the avalanche of justice, called me a week before. Gloria and I were thinking, he said. I never had daughters, just sons. Would Bridget consider letting her Uncle Jerome take her to the dance? When I asked Bridget, her face lit up for the first time in months. Uncle Jerome wants to take me? Really? She wore the same pink dress, let out a bit because she'd grown, but still perfect. Jerome showed up in a full tuxedo with a corsage and a nervous smile. I've presided over hundreds of trials, he told me, but I've never been more nervous than I am right now. They danced every dance. Jerome's 6'4" frame bent awkwardly as Bridget stood on his shoes for the slow songs. He learned the cha-cha slide and the Cupid shuffle. He held her hand during the father-daughter spotlight dance, and when she started crying, he knelt down and whispered, "You're worth 1,000 dances, Bridget. Don't ever forget that." The photo from that night sits on our mantle now. Jerome in his tuxedo, Bridget in her pink dress, both laughing as he spins her around. It's next to another photo from 3 months ago at Bridget's middle school graduation. She won the Citizenship Award for standing up to bullies and helping younger students. In her acceptance speech, she said, "My mom taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help, and the strongest thing you can do is refuse to accept less than you deserve." Warren wasn't there, of course. He'd lost his supervised visitation rights after failing to show up 3 times in a row. But Jerome was there. Gloria was there. My parents were there. And Melody and her family were there. Bridget's real family, the ones who chose her every single day. The pink dress still hangs in Bridget's closet, but not as a reminder of pain. She keeps it as proof that sometimes the worst moments in our lives become the catalyst for the best changes. That dress represents the night she stopped waiting for a father who wouldn't show up and started recognizing the family who always would. Warren still sends checks, now garnished directly from his wages. Sometimes he includes notes asking for forgiveness, updates on his life, pleas for another chance. Bridget throws them away unopened. "I've forgiven him, Mom," she told me last week, but forgiveness doesn't mean access. He taught me that when he had access to me and chose someone else. My daughter is 14 now, and she's never waited by a window for anyone again. She doesn't make excuses for people who disappoint her. She doesn't accept less than she deserves. She learned at 10 what some people never learn, that blood doesn't make someone family, showing up does, and that sometimes the universe delivers justice not through grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but through a quiet phone call from a mother who's finally had enough. The last time I saw Warren was at a gas station 6 months ago. He'd aged 10 years in 2, his hair completely gray, his expensive suit replaced by khakis and a polo shirt. He saw us, started to approach, but Bridget simply took my hand and said, "We don't know him anymore, Mom." We got in our car and drove away, leaving him standing by pump 3, finally understanding what it felt like to be left behind. Some might say I was cruel, that I should have protected Warren's relationship with Bridget despite his failures. But I didn't destroy their relationship. I simply stopped protecting him from the consequences of his choices. There's a difference between keeping peace and keeping secrets, between forgiveness and enabling, between a father and a man who shares DNA. Bridget learned that night in the pink dress that she was worth more than someone's convenience, more than empty promises, more than being second choice. And that lesson, painful as it was to learn, became her armor against a world that would try to convince her otherwise. That's not a tragedy. That's a triumph. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button below. It really helps the channel grow. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're worth showing up for. Drop a comment about a time when someone's actions showed you who they really were. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss our next story. Remember, you're worth every promise someone makes to you, and anyone who treats you as optional has no place in your priority list. Until next time, keep standing up for yourself and the ones you love.